Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today's episode 213, and we're going to be interviewing Karen. How are you doing, Karen?
Good, thank you.
Glad to hear that. So let's dive in and get started. I ask everybody the same question, starting off on each episode, which is tell me about your childhood and growing up.
My childhood and growing up was pretty adverse and abusive, to say the least. Um, just to hit on some highlights, because it would take a very long time to tell you the whole, kindergarten through 12th grade that I lived at home.
Well, remember, you have as much time as you need.
Okay. Um, Basically, my mom was very abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally. It could be things as mean as I have a twin brother. So I have older siblings, and my mom said it was like having and raising two families because there's an 11 year difference between the older kids, my older brother and sister, and then Kevin and I. And so we were boo-boos, and then two boo-boos. And my mom always would say things like, I meant to only have one child, and that's what I had, was one child and one mistake. And I was the mistake. Um, don't know what that meant. Straight A's in school, started guitar in third grade, classical guitar, and clarinet, stuck with my music all the way through college. Wasn't really allowed to go out and do much, never broke curfew, did all of our chores, but there was obviously some mental illness there because even like the table behind me, if my mom said, go dust that table, you could dust that table 3 times and she would come and wipe her hand across and go like this and say, you didn't wipe the goddamn table. And then she would get abusive and beat you, go get the belt, go get whatever she could grab.
Was there a reason that she was so angry?
I think my mom had mental illness regarding cleanliness and other things. The older kids went through it too, but it seemed like she always picked one of the two. So for my older siblings, I have the sister born first, and mom would pick on her a little bit, but it was mostly my older brother. And then with Kevin and I, it was just the reverse. It was me and my twin brother was kind of, taken care of, and I was abused. So, I mean, so many things. Getting locked out of the house for 3 days with no food or water. You were not allowed to leave the yard. That was me, not Kevin. I remember it was winter.
What kind
I
of thing, like what infraction would you make that she would be so harsh on you?
um ironing the wrong way, not ironing something perfect, not putting the dishes away properly, not dusting our room properly, not making our bed properly. It was all of those things. It wasn't drugs, it wasn't alcohol, it wasn't getting bad grades, because all of those were no-nos, and we knew it. And we didn't cross those boundaries. You didn't come home with a C in my house. Um, so those things would transpire. And yeah, one time I was outside for 3 days and it was extremely cold. It was winter. By the time she kicked me out, I just had socks, Levi's, and a sweatshirt on. And she had kicked my dad out several times. Sometimes mom and dad would be up fighting all night. He was abused just as much as we were. And it's kind of sad to see a 6 foot man that can't stick up for himself or take his children and get somewhere safe and tell her, you're not going to do this no more. So there's that animosity that, you have some resentment towards your mother for abusing you all your life. And then you have this resentment because your father couldn't get you to a better place and was just as afraid of her as we were. And so I'm outside one time. It's day 3. It's very cold. My dad is still gone. I can see in the backyard, and you're not allowed to leave the yard because if you left the yard to get help or in shelter, she would just come get you and then beat you up more and then throw you back in the backyard. And I'm 58. So Jim, I'm from an era where you could go to school all abused, beat up, belt marks, and undress in PE and be embarrassed. And other people, kids and teachers see it, but nobody got involved. So I'm looking down and I can see her light in her bedroom flickering. So I know it's bedtime. It is, she's under her heating blanket watching her TV with the light flickering. And I look in the sliding glass doors to the den, and my twin brother is sitting in front of the TV, eating a bowl of ice cream, and a fire is made in the fireplace. And I knocked on the window, and he looked and he came over and he goes, "What?" And I said, "Kevin, can you please just let me in the garage door? I promise I will leave in the morning before she wakes up. I won't get you in trouble, but I'm dying." And he said, "No, I ain't getting in trouble for you." And I said, "Then can you please just give me a jacket and some shoes? Please." And he closed the shade and he said, "No." Then there was a time that at 16 years old, I was told I've been gay all my life. I have been a lesbian since I could remember third grade, knowing that I was gay, and I have never strayed from that. Um, at 16, being told that I was out having sex with guys, and I just stood there. I'm like, I don't get to go anywhere. Where am I doing this, Mom? Behind the lockers for all I know. So when my dad got home, she told my dad she made me an appointment, a doctor appointment, and he was to take me to that doctor appointment to see if I was still a virgin. That's pretty devastating for a 16-year-old that's never been touched by anybody. And I remember crying and I remember being very upset, but my dad took me. And I remember getting to the hospital and being given this gown at a very young age, inexperienced in all ways, and being told to get undressed, put this gown on, I'll be back. And the male doctor came in, he told me to put my feet up in the stirrups. And Jim, that's when I lost it. You know, I was kind of immature. My maturity level wasn't where some people's were in those type of topics. And I literally started hyperventilating, crying, couldn't stop. I think at that point I probably had a little bit of a mental breakdown.
I can imagine it must have been terrifying.
I was terrified. The abuse had been since we were infants until whenever, but just some of these stories. And so the doctor felt really bad. He said, "Honey, get dressed." And he came out and he told my dad, "I don't know what your wife and yours problem is, but I'm not doing this. And I can tell you that nobody's touched this girl." So when we're driving home, I'm begging my dad, "Please don't tell Mom I didn't do the exam." Because I didn't say I wouldn't. I was just so upset I couldn't calm down. And so what was the first thing that my dad said when we walked in the house to my mom? She wouldn't do the test. So there was hours of being beat up, and my dad's face all clawed up and her hitting him and kicked us both out. So we're driving and my dad says, "Well, I can't afford a hotel room for both of us. So, and you can't stay in my hotel." And I, even at that age, I was like, "Why? You're my father." And he said he was going to have to take me and drop me off at the police department. I begged him not to. I said, "Please take me to Debbie or Joe's." And this is my older siblings that are now moved out, married, and one has a baby, my sister. He takes me to my older brother's house. My older brother knows of the abuse that he went through. I'm a beat up mess. And dad explains, "I don't know what to do. I don't have anywhere to go." And my older brother literally grabbed me and shoved my dad and said, "You piece of shit, get off my porch." So I moved in with my brother. We did a writ of habeas corpus. They did get temporary custody of me. They were a young couple, just married, and Jan was pregnant.
How old were they? You remember?
Gosh, I was 16, so Joe had to be 25.
Okay, so okay.
And so my mom wouldn't give me my musical instruments. My music was everything to me. Um, so she wouldn't give me any of my clothes. She wouldn't give me anything. And so my brother's wife came to me. She gave me 3 blouses and she said, Karen, we cannot afford to buy you new clothes to go to school. I'm in high school at this time. Um, we're really, really tight on funds, but here's some blouses. You can wash and iron and rotate them. And that's what I had to do. I had 1 pair of Levi's, 1 pair of shoes, and 3 blouses. And I would, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I rotated those blouses and I still went to school every day and put a smile on my face and trudged on. And yeah, I was embarrassed, I was hurt, and nothing else I could do. So I went to school every day. And it just so happens that one day my brother, twin brother, passes me in the hallway and he goes, didn't you wear that stupid effing outfit already this week, you stupid bitch? And I just froze. I just froze. So, he's living at home alone with mom. He's glorified God. My mom said that she believed that her dead father came back reincarnated in my twin brother. So he was her favorite. So I think there was a lot of mental illness on my mom's side going on that we lived through. Most nights I would go to bed and from being beat up so bad, literally couldn't even lay my head on a soft pillow. I'd have to sleep like this because it still hurt so bad. So we went through that, and basically my older brother, we stalked the house, and we went over one night and we broke in my bedroom window, and took my guitar, my clarinet, some shoes, some clothes, and some underwear. And yeah, they made it very hard on us for doing that. But at the end of the day, I got my stuff, and I was told that they couldn't afford a whole lot for me. So at 16, I had to go get a job and go to school. They told me that being they both worked, they were not going to have full access. They don't have a car to give me. And I didn't have my driver's license yet. And so they said I could borrow Joe's 10-speed bike in the day we had 10 speeds to get back and forth to work. First weather that they would take me. So basically, I rode a 10-speed and got a job at Gemco back in the day, and I would work evenings and go to school during the day until I could raise enough money to buy a car and get my own license. And so I did. I had $900, which was a lot back then, not now. And I bought a used Ford Pinto, and just kind of getting through life. And it was really, really tough. Very, very tough. One day I came home and from school, I was going to get ready to go to work. And I heard my older brother and sister-in-law talking, and they were in the back bedroom, and she was crying, and I heard her. Joe, you don't understand. I can't take the phone calls at work no more. Your mother is saying she's going to come burn our house down. And she was spotting. They were home early because they had to go to a doctor appointment. She was spotting, and I felt guilty. I was like, oh my God, she's enduring all this stress. My mom is psycho, and they're a newly married couple. And Jim, I tell you, I felt really horrible. And so, yeah, I snuck a phone call, and I told my dad pick up, and I said, I want to come home. I didn't want to come home, and I knew what coming home meant. And my older brother was not very happy with me because of what they went through to get me. But Jim, I even at that age was a very heartfelt person, and I didn't want to be the cause of my sister-in-law miscarrying a baby, and she was having some issues. So I took myself out of their situation so their life could go back to normal. I knew they'd be mad at me, but I wasn't going to have that on my mind and on my heart that she would lose the baby because of all the stress. So I went back home, and I went back home until I was 21, 20, 20 years old, and graduated high school with honors, was starting college. My twin brother had a high school sweetheart, and what my mom was very racist, very, very racist. And so his girlfriend was half Puerto Rican and half Italian. And he came, and at dinner table one night, he sat down and told my mom that he was going to ask Linda to marry him. And he wanted to marry her and start a family and go to work. He had a lot of colleges asking him to come run for them. He broke all the records, Jim, in the high desert. He might still have some of the records. To this day, he still runs at our 58 years old age. I run 1 or 2 miles in the morning. He runs 6 miles a day, every
Wow,
day,
that's amazing.
religiously. All four of us kids, with all of the abuse and all of the discord, none of us got into drugs, alcohol. Both my parents smoked, but none of us kids did. None of us do. And so my mom said, "You are not marrying that girl." And she went and picked up the phone, which was hanging on the wall at that time with a really long cord on it so you could go privacy around somewhere and talk.
Yep,
Um,
I
and
remember those.
she picked up the phone and she said, "You stupid little wop, you are not getting my clean little white boy." And Kevin grabbed her arm. And that's the first time I'd seen them have an interaction like that. And he said, "Put the phone down." And she just stood there. And my dad wasn't home. He was working out of town at that time. My dad was in construction. And he said, "Put the phone down." So she hung it up, and he said, "You will never, ever, ever talk to her that way again or do this to me." And on that day, at 20 years old, because we were told when you turn 18, we don't got money for college. You better have a job because you're going to be paying rent. You're going to be paying groceries. You're going to be paying your own car insurance. And we both paid our own car payments. And we both, and at that time. And so you're either going to start paying rent or you're going to have to go pay rent somewhere else. So that's what we were doing. So it was just me and Kevin left. Older kids were out. They were grown doing their stuff. And so he went and got his stuff. He threw some stuff in a duffel bag and he left, and he never came back. He has never spoke to my parents again. He has never spoke to them again, not even on their death dying beds when they begged, "Can we please see Kevin before we die?" So he left. He's out. He got an apartment. He lived in an apartment with a sleeping bag on the floor, and my sister and I went and seen him, and one of those little mini fridges, and that's what he could afford. And he said, "At least it's peaceful, it's quiet, and I don't have anybody verbally abusing me, and I can live my life and make my decisions." Um, when he was little, Debbie came home from school. She said she used to be, my older sister's 11 years older. She used to be afraid to leave Kevin and I there as toddlers. She came home one day. Mom had Kevin up in the air by the arm over the toilet with a belt and beating his butt. Not quite sure how old he was, but he was at potty training age. And my sister said, "Mom, what the hell are you doing? He pissed all over the toilet." You're potty training a toddler. So yes, there was some serious abusive mental illness there. So my sister grabbed that child and ran down the street to a neighbor's house. My mom followed in suit, and she told her, "You bitch, you better get your ass home," and took the baby away. Again, the neighbors didn't get involved. Nobody called on us. I'm living out of the backyard, drinking out of a hose with nothing to eat for 3 days. And the neighbor sends their son over, which was embarrassing, to check on me. Are you okay? My mom said she's seen you outside a lot. I go, I'm fine. You couldn't say anything or you'd be in trouble. But they never did anything. Nobody ever called. Nobody ever helped. Nobody ever came. And our father didn't even help us. So this has been going on and on and on all of our life. One other story I'll tell you, and then we'll dive into something, you know, a little bit more getting past this part is Kevin and I, they didn't have boy and girl Levi's back in the day. So Kevin and I, you know, we were both kind of thin and we're the same size boy Levi's. If you were a girl, you bought boys Levi's. But they also didn't have stonewash Levi's. So you washed them and dried them as much as you could. Well, penny pinching and budget conscious parents, we would wait till our parents left the house to do that wash and dry, wash and dry, wash and dry cycle to kind of get our jeans a little softer and faded. One night, Kevin, my twin brother, said, I think you have my jeans, Karen, because mine were more faded than this. And I'm like, I don't got your jeans. I've only got mine. He goes, let me see your jeans because I put a mark on my tags so I know they were mine. So we were having this little basic, nothing major, teenage banter conversation. Nobody was fighting, screaming, hitting each other. Again, my dad was out of town and mom comes down the hallway and she goes, what's going on? Kevin looked at her and said, Karen took my jeans. She had no other questions to ask. She went and got the belt and she pulled my hair. She punched me. She beat me. She threw me to the ground and she was just hitting me as hard as she could. I've only seen my twin brother cry 3 times. Once was when that evening happened and he was crying and he said, Mom, you're going to hurt her. And he had to grab her arm and hold it so I could get away. 2, when his first and only wife miscarried their first baby and he came to talk to me. And 3, when he came to talk to me to tell me that him and Linda were getting a divorce and that Linda had cheated on him with another man. So there's only 3 times I've seen my brother cry. So that night he was literally bawling his eyes out and saying, Mom, you're literally going to hurt her. And he held her arm because she wouldn't stop. And again, no shoes, winter, Levi's sweatshirt. I took off running, Jim. I busted out that back door and I ran. We were in a mobile home park, a really nice one. And I ran all the way to my sister's house and I didn't stop. And I get to the door and my sister opened the door and she said, oh my God, Karen, are you okay? What happened? I was a mess. I was a cut up, tore up, bruised up mess. And boom, the phone rings and it's my mom. And she's like, if that little bitch is there, you better get her home. You better bring her home or I'm going to come over. I'm going to burn your mobile home down. They were in another area. Her new husband and her new baby. So Terry hears this, her husband, and she's like, Deb, we can't do this. And she's like, Mom, just let her stay a night or 2. She's pretty bad off. Just calm down and just let her stay a couple nights. She said, she's either home in 5 minutes or I'm coming to burn your house down. So we get in the car. My sister's crying. I'm crying all the way to dropping me off. So the rest of my night was being beat up until I couldn't be beat no more and fell asleep crying. So I think you understand where my childhood was. You never knew what you were coming home to. You could come home and she'd have that lock on the door, open the door, stick her hand out and say, give me your house key. You no longer live here because you didn't clean your room right. We had to clean every day before school and we had a ton of chores after school. We never had downtime. And then you had chores all weekend long. So it was a really compulsive, weird OCD cleaning every day with my mother.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds very, very OCD.
Very, very.
But
And I
also
think
sounds like it's also motivated maybe by some type of manic phase.
yes, yes. And we'll get there through my counseling later on in life. They kind of, when I describe my stories, they kind of called, therapists would call my mother what they call a dry drunk, or I'm sorry, a dry alcoholic. And so, yeah, she had some serious mental issues. And all of us feared her. And so now we'll just fast forward back to where I came home because I did not want to be the cause of my older brother's wife's child miscarrying. I wanted them to have peace and get this baby there safe. And you know what? I'll take what I got. So Kevin, my twin brother, over his girlfriend that he wanted to marry, grabbed her arm, said, "You're not talking to her like that. I'm not going through this again." And he left. My dad was out of town for weeks at a time, so it was just me there. Could you imagine just being there with my mother alone? No. So I did have a girlfriend. I never came out to my parents. Never, never. My mom would have literally had somebody come lock me up in a car and drive me somewhere to fix me. That would not be acceptable. So I did not come out as lesbian or gay to my parents at all, or anybody. I had to really be careful with that. And it wasn't until high school that I had a girlfriend, and that was on the down low. But now I'm a 20-year-old woman, and I was dating an English teacher, and I was going to work every day, and I had talked to the partner at the time, which knew all about the abuse. And I said, if we're going to move out together, we got to have the deposit paid, and I have to have a key in hand, because I know as soon as I tell her I'm leaving, I'm going to have about 5 minutes to get what I can out of the house. So little by little, I was taking things out. She would go to bingo a lot. So little by little, I was taking things out and putting them in the apartment. And by things, I mean, all I had was my clothes and my personal things. It wasn't furniture or anything that I was taking. But I wanted to make sure I got my guitar, my clarinet, and my things that I was still doing through college. So one night I said, "Mom, can you come down and sit at the table? I need to talk to you." So I did that. I sat down and talked to her. I said, "Mom, I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be getting an apartment and moving out on my own." And she unleashed, "Who the hell do you think you are? You're not mature enough to live on your own. What the hell are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, I pay my own car payment, my own car insurance, groceries, and rent, and pretty much take care of myself. Why would I not be able to take care of myself somewhere else?" And that was it. So, yep. So I told my partner, I said, "Be ready for a phone call." So while she's in my room taking shit and just throwing it out in the driveway, I ran in her bedroom, hid around the corner on that phone that was attached to, a line again. We didn't have cell phones. And I said, "I'm ready." Click. And she got there. So she could load up her car, I could load up my car, and we were gone. And so there was a period of time that all of us kids, we didn't talk to our parents. We were all done. It was about a good 10-year period. So they missed out on a lot. And it's a small town in Victorville, but we didn't run into them. So at that point, I went on with my life. And I through counseling, another thing that came up, and we'll get to that, but another thing came up, and I don't know if anybody's ever said this to you, Jim, in regards to having an abusive childhood to the extreme that I did. You're either going to go one way or another, and it's usually not an in-between. You're either going to be an overachiever, or you're going to get into drugs and alcohol to check out, because it's a lot to process. And so I had my music. So whenever she was done beating me or whatever, and I would go in my room, I would shut my door and I would write sheet music, or I would play music on my clarinet and my guitar that I had. And so that was my checkout. Music was always my checkout. And I was obviously an overachiever with straight A academics, and anything that I did, I excelled. I mean, even a few classical lessons, and I was better than a lot of classical players that were out there. So you're always that overachiever, and that continued throughout my life. So now I'm on my own, and I'm doing good. And Jim, I don't remember alcohol being a thing. I remember alcohol and partying being, come on, Karen, just go out tonight. Well, I started at King High Tech. I was into tech and gadgets and computers when women weren't into it. I was a band geek and a computer geek, period. And so started with King High Tech, and they were a company that did packaging of all the software, Accolade, Sony, whoever. And then they had another department that put together the actual keys for the keyboard of computers. Those have to be in the day. I'm sure it's very different today. In the day, you hand put those together with a spring, you pushed them on a thing, it either tested positive or good, and you threw them in a box. Bad, good. And then you would ship those to the companies or foreign countries that were making keyboards. And so this was this techie company that was doing all these other little things here. And so I worked my way up in the company through that, and I started managing different accounts, big accounts, and being the person that went to their trade shows, because they also developed products. Like they developed the first product for you to be able to do a PowerPoint presentation on your computer, and then a cable that you hook to your computer and to the VHS player, put the tape in, play your PowerPoint presentation, and hit record. So you could go to these conferences anywhere you were going around the world, call the hotel, make sure they had one of those lovely TVs in the conference room that was the TV with the VCR player. So you could take your PowerPoint presentation, and you didn't have to worry about, the laptops were big, they were heavy and all this, and you didn't have to worry about telling them, can you set up a computer? We didn't have the cloud where you could put a file. So they did a lot of that, and I was really proud to work for them and be a part of that. And from that point, I got a job at Software Etc., which are now GameStops and EB stores. But I was the first and only woman that company hired as a manager, the first and only for a very long time. So I'm proud of that, and I went on to be their first and only district woman manager. I lived through the days of men coming into my store and saying, may I speak to the manager? And I would politely point to my badge, which was really big. They were way too big, and say, I am the manager. And they would say, do you have a man manager? I lived through those days. And I said, no, we do not. But what is it that you need? And I'll earn your trust today. And that's how I had to approach it. And they weren't comfortable buying memory chips and modems and software packages and accounting software from a female. What was I supposed to know? And a young female. So I had to really work hard, Jim, for the things that I had and gotten in life. Very hard. And so one day, four gentlemen in very nice suits, and the whole time I'm not talking to my parents, us kids, so they didn't really get to share any of that accomplishments in my life, with me. And it was always kind of back here. It was like, man, if I just had a normal life where my parents could be a part of this and be proud of me. And so I had four gentlemen in nice suits come into my home base store, because I was a mini district manager running 4 or 5 stores and had a home base store. And they came in, and I just thought it was a visit from corporate, and it was not. It was four gentlemen from a little store that we now call Best Buy. And I'd never heard of them. And they were thinking of coming to California and opening stores in California. So they wanted to recruit me as a manager. And I was happy where I was at, making very good money for a single woman. And I'm very loyal to a fault. And I said I would have to think about that. And so went home, slept on it. I think I slept on it 2 nights. And I had to think, you know what, Karen, you got to get out of your comfort zone. And instead of managing a 2,400 square foot store, you're going to be managing a 56,000 square foot store. Instead of 4 or 5 employees, it's going to be 180, 80 to 100 employees or whatever. And that this would be a good growth thing for me. And it would be an increase in bonuses and pay. So on a certain day, an older gentleman with gray hair, and I still remember his name, Ray Wood, came down in the mall, and he said, "Are you Karen?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, he put out his hand to shake my hand, and he said, "Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Ray Wood, and I am the manager of the Radio Shack." Yeah, we had Radio Shack stores in the day.
Oh
Radio
yeah, I
Shack.
remember those. I just actually turned 40, so I remember that stuff.
Okay. So he goes, "I'm the manager of the Radio Shack store up the way in the mall." And I just figured I accepted a position with them as well. And I wanted to come down and put a face with the name. So when we go to training, we have somebody that, we know and we feel comfortable with. And I thought that was really nice because that's the kind person I was. Now I'm all back, really big into my career, work, right? Very loyal, only have had a handful of one hand is all I need for how many relationships I've had. So long-term committed and loyal to jobs, long-term committed to people and relationships. And here and there, once in a while, having a beer or this or that. It was really never hard alcohol. Karen, come on out. We're going to go out tonight. Nope, got to open my store in the morning. I was very responsible. I got called the goody goody. I got made fun of, but I was just responsible, And so my drinking problem didn't happen back then. And it was just a normal, what you would call a normal, go out once in a while, have a couple beers, go home. So Ray says, "What position did you take?" And I said, "Store manager." And he said, no. I mean, what department did you get? You're a supervisor of what department?" And I said, "Ray, I was offered a store manager position and promised the Victorville store so I could get back home where my family is, where I was driving almost every other weekend with my 2 little dogs in a doggy bed in a seat." And as soon as I saw that Victorville city limit line, I could breathe and I was home. With Software Etc., I started in the Victorville mall store, and they wanted to promote me because I had the vice president call me. "What are you doing, Karen? That Victorville store was supposed to be my loss, my write-off, and you're making money." So they, over the years, told me to be a district manager and branch out and do bigger things. You're going to have to get out of that little city, and you're going to have to get somewhere in a bigger store. So that's when I took over the Northridge Fashion Center store. Yes, the same year that we had that huge, horrible earthquake, and I turned on the news, and there's my Northridge Fashion Center, and half of it's like crumbled. So that was another little fun fact story too. So I lived through that. But so now I'm in Palmdale, and I was doing these other stores and driving all the time. And it kind of felt good to think that I'm going to be back in Victorville and in one store and not have to drive all over these different stores and freeways. And I told him, no, I'm going to be the manager to open all these first 6 California stores. Victorville was going to be one of the last stores, but that was going to be my promise, my store. And he goes, I think you mean a department in the Victorville store eventually or something, but and he patted my hand and he said, but we'll figure that out when we get there. I'm like, okay, because he said he got the position of audio supervisor in the Palmdale store, which was going to be our first Best Buy store that we opened. And so when we got there and I'm on the stage with, and again, something that I'm very proud of, I was the only woman out of 18 managers that they hired to open all the first California stores. I was the only woman out of those 18 managers.
That's
So
great.
it is, it's things that I'm very proud of.
You
And
should
so
be. It's very hard to do. It's a man's world, so it's very hard to come up in it as a woman.
it was. And that's that whole overachiever thing. So,
And at this time, you weren't drinking or anything. You said it was just every now and then.
no, no, it was just, you go to a barbecue, have a beer, you're good.
Is there a
Okay.
point where that changed?
Yeah, I never had an addictive personality ever. I could have surgery. I don't want pain meds. No, I'm good. They give them to you anyway. 3 years later, they're still in the cabinet, expired, toss them. Um, so, so yeah, so now I'm working for Best Buy, and somewhere along the line with a lot of working. I mean, retail's hard. We all know that.
Yeah,
But
I know retail.
when you're a store manager, a district manager, or built, and we built all the stores from the inside out. Best Buy is very different now. The layout's very different now. The philosophy is very different now. So I was working a lot of hours, and I'm not opposed to hard work. I've kept up with the best of them. I started having seizures, and I had a really bad one night where my partner woke up and said, I was sitting up in bed, eyes rolled back, foaming at the mouth, the whole lovely picture of a grand mal seizure. And the only next thing I remember is sitting on the couch, the front door open, an ambulance outside, my sister and her husband that lived right down the street in Spring Valley Lake at my house because my partner at the time called my sister. And I didn't remember who my sister was, Jim. So that kind of scared me. And so I knew health wise, I need to get out of retail. If I was still young, but when I turn 50, that this is not what I want to still be doing. Working all these long hours, no holidays off, no family time, working nights, all of this. I had to rethink the whole thing. So I didn't have enough time to look for a job. I hired an employment agency. They got me to offers and interviews with well, not offers, but interviews with Dean Witter and Household Finance. They both wanted to hire me at the same time. Dean Witter, I'm like, I could make a boatload of money. I'm good with numbers, people, etc. But that's really stressful because after 3 years, they taper you down and you're commission only. I was not a fan. I, I like something stable and tangible I can count on. So I took the household position. I did good there, and some things happened where they were turning things around. Uh, the market crashed. They still wanted real estate loans done, but HFC never catered to the A credit people, so they wanted us to do these hooky things. When people call in, you're going to tell them, when they ask you what the rate is, what's the effective rate? You're going to tell them what the effective rate is. And you're going to use that word, because if you pay biweekly payments and another extra payment at the end of the year, you've cut this much interest off, and now you're effectively only paying this much interest. To me, that's smoke and mirrors, and I wasn't going to lie. Well, long story short, I told them it's going to come back and bite somebody in the ass. I never did it. I got talked to about it, but I was a top performer and they wanted me to be a branch manager. But it was the first time, Jim. All I had to do is worry about me and my loans and my sales and my people and take care of my customers and be honest with my customers. So still not drinking. Once in a while, a beer here and there. Wasn't really even a wine drinker, and never really hard alcohol. So one day, on the front cover of Forbes magazine and on the front cover of Time magazine was our CEO of HFC, which I can talk about because it's no longer and they're gone, home wrecker, because they were telling people to lie about the interest rates. And I said, I can no longer work for a place that I can't be proud of. So that's when I started looking elsewhere, school districts, utilities, and cities. And I got a job at a city, and that was exactly 20.17 years ago. And when I got to that city and I learned about, my 401k that had dwindled because most of my money, all my commission checks from HFC were put into a 401k for my retirement. Well, the minute that home record came up on Forbes and Time Magazine and all over the news, our stock that had recently doubled and we were making bank, and I was very heavy in company stock, Jim, it became penny stock overnight. Overnight. I was part of a class action lawsuit for a number of years of us employees that, and our HFC credit card division was cooking their books. That was a term back in the day, to make it show like they were making a profit and not. So we were part of a class action lawsuit trying to get our money back. Nothing ever came of it. So at the city, I just started dumping money into the 457 plan, 457B, and working as hard as I could. And kind of figuring out and navigating through this. All my life, I worked for the private sector. Now I'm working for the public sector, and attached to this is a pension. So 3 weeks in, I educated myself on everything that I could, and I did a 20-year plan, Jim. I made a freaking spreadsheet and a 20-year plan. At the time, I was dating my new partner. And they worked for the city as well, but they worked offsite at a different division, and I worked at the main town hall building. And I made a 20-year plan, and I'm very disciplined. I don't have an addictive personality, and I'm doing good, and I'm going to stay on track, and I'm going to get us retired at 55 and at 58, because she is 2 years younger than me, 3. So at any rate, I'm working for the city. I'm doing good. I have this great partner. We have a plan. I do all the bills. I made sure we had a life insurance policy together. I made sure we did advanced directives, where we had an understanding. I sat her down one night. I go, this is not a comfortable conversation, but we're going to do advanced directives to protect us, regardless of whether our families want to come in and say, oh, no, we don't believe in cremation. But if that's what your wish is, then I need to know that. So we did advanced directives, end of life wishes, had everything notarized, did at that point, we'd been together for a while, but did a domestic partnership registered with the state of California. We didn't have gay marriage at the time. That was to protect us and our assets together that we have together. So where does my drinking become a problem? Well,
Yeah, I was about to ask, at what point did it turn into no longer every now and then?
and I'm a control freak.
Oh, me too. I called myself, I was the most out of control freak you'll ever meet. That's how I felt, because I like to control certain aspects of my life, and I was not able to control it, but I thought I was controlling it.
Exactly, exactly. So mine started in particular, again, it was moderate drinking at parties and whatnot, to having arguments and not getting along or whatever, and then drinking more than I should at a party or whatever, because you're having this discord with your partner. Then my partner, she had to have a hysterectomy, and there's a lot of cancer that runs in her family, so she opted to have the ovaries taken out as well. And I know this might be a little TMI, but the doctor told us at the time, that's going to throw you into immediate menopause. And we laughed. We're younger. We laughed at, the word menopause and what we hear and what we know about it. And the doctor said, no, I'm being serious. being that it's being taken out today, you're not going to have any time to catch up. It's going to happen, and it's going to affect you and throw you for a loop. Well, she didn't want to take hormones because of all the cancer problems in her family and the risk of cancer that comes with hormones. And she went crazy. She went bonkers. And we're talking about the vacuum not working, a lot of anger and rage, and a lot of uncontrollable emotions because of the non-balancing of the hormones and that immediate menopause. You know, the vacuum cleaner's not working right. So all of a sudden I'm in the back of the house and I come out and I'm like hearing this stuff and I'm like, what is going on? And she completely like slammed my very expensive Dyson vacuum cleaner to the point where she broke the wheel off. Next thing you know, there's a commotion in the back of the house. I go back there. What is going on? She's got the whole shade ripped off the window. And I'm like, what happened? And she goes, that thing never worked right. It's a piece of shit anyways, and I'm just tired of dealing with it. So this is what can happen. And I wish that the doctors would have you and your partner or your husband or whoever, your kids, have a little, hour seminar prior to hysterectomy surgery, because I've got two girlfriends afterwards. I'm like, did you go through this? One of them said yes. My husband literally said, if this doesn't change, you're going. And she came home one night and her suitcase was packed and by the front door. You're not doing this to me and the kids no more. And that was a wake-up call for her, and she got hormones, counseling, and better. My other friend, she never made it back. It takes away your libido. Husbands aren't going to live their whole life without having some emotional compassion, connection with their partner. And yeah, she went through a bad divorce. So it does happen. I kept trying to treat it as just like cancer or anything else. It's a disease. I'm gonna get my person through this, and it didn't work. And so I started drinking, and she would say mean, hurtful things, and go as far as to say, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I hadn't even done anything wrong. It makes you feel not wanted, you not feel loved. You're not feeling that emotional connection anymore because it's not there. They're in another place. And so I started drinking to numb that. And that's what it did. It numbed that. And to the point where she didn't want to see me drunk anymore. But I wanted to reconnect and make things better. And so it became this vicious circle. So I'm drinking to numb out. She's getting mad at me to drink and numb out. She doesn't want to be around drunk Karen. And it just got worse and worse. So 10 years ago, it's Halloween. Halloween's really big at my work at the city that I worked at the time, and everybody participated. And mine was larger than life. I had 6 years of winning every single year, and it was big. It was not small. It took me several days to set up at work. I had six or seven zombie babies, and I could dress them in different stuff, go to Ross, buy clothes. 1 year when the cities were trying to shut down all the illegal medical marijuana shops, me and my zombie babies, and I get in character too, we were running a herbal outlet depot that we were trying to pull off as not a medical marijuana shop. And we're trying to keep it open because the city was trying to shut us down. So that's funny. The next year, I turned my whole work area and cubicle into a blue tarp, cardboard on the outside, and now we're at a homeless camp because we're homeless. And next year was a big thing at the cities with the homeless. It was all the focus. So now we're a homeless camp, and all the funny things that I had done over the years. So we'd always have this lunch at lunchtime, and if you dressed up or participated, lunch was free. If you didn't, it was $5. So I'd always throw Diane's $5 in for her. She, like I said, worked for another department off site. She would meet there for lunch, and we would have fun. This particular year, I even brought one of my zombie babies to the luncheon, and I was like sitting it with Diane and talking to her, and eating, talking to the people, but lunch wasn't served yet. And all of a sudden, Diane disappears. I thought she just went to the bathroom. She didn't even tell me she was leaving. So I call her phone. I'm like, where are you? And she just went off on me. She said I was ignoring her. She wasn't going to sit there and have me ignore her no more. And I'm like, Jim, I wasn't ignoring her. I was making her a part of it. I go, what are you talking about? And she goes, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Click. Now, this is a typical day for years on end that Halloween is my holiday. It is huge. It is scary. If it's not bloody and gory, it's not going in the yard. I had all my family over, friends over. We ordered pizza. I have a chalkboard. We keep track of all the kids that are pushed to the door crying. I mean, it was huge, and we'd have fun with it. So on this particular day, Diane was not in a good place. So now I'm elevated and I'm upset. So I didn't eat lunch because you get an instant sick stomach. And so typically I would, as soon as I would always do my part of the competition, eat the lunch, get the awards, and then I worked half day and pick up some of my stuff, take all my zombie babies home with me because they'd be a part of what's here. I literally had people from Spring Valley Lake to wherever coming to the door, not even for candy, just, can I take a picture with your zombie babies? Because each year they'd be doing something funny out in the yard. Can I just set my toddler with your zombie babies and take a picture? Sure, go ahead, whatever. But we had a lot of other stuff going on. Jumping out at people, scaring people. Little kids were like throwing their buckets of candy. And it's just always been a fun thing for my family and us to get together. Well, it was my tradition to work half day, come home. I'd always get me a double shot of Jack Daniels, not overdo it, and a Diet Coke. Have my little drink, put the rest of my stuff out because there's stuff that was big electronics we couldn't put out for weeks on end prior. And then you had to get all the strobe lights and stuff and everything set up. Diane would try to get off early and help me get the rest of the stuff out and finish up and be ready to go and pick up the pizzas. And we'd always get the pizzas right down in Spring Valley Lake because we had a lovely little couple that owned it and we loved supporting them, and they didn't do delivery. So that day in particular, I got 2 double shots of Jack Daniels #7. I weigh about 119 pounds. I didn't eat breakfast and I didn't eat lunch. And I got me 2 double shots of Jack Daniels because of what Diane had been doing during that day and being upset and me being upset and me being elevated and me being used to, I'm just going to drink and then I'm not going to feel it. I'm not going to worry about it. And she called and she said something to me that she wasn't in the mood to be around my family. And I'm only coming home, Karen, if nobody's there. I've got good friends that are coming, my entire family coming, people looking forward to it, inside and outside, decorated to the nines. And within an hour now, everybody's going to be here. And she's supposed to be on her way home with the pizzas. And she tells me, I don't want to be around people today. I'm not feeling it. I can't tell people in less than an hour, you can't come now. And you can't come now because my partner is having a freak out, wig out session again. So I had already drank. She told me, fine, I'm not coming home. Click. So I start crying. I start panicking. And I did something stupid. I got in the car thinking I was okay. We do that.
Mm-hmm.
I got this. I am okay to drink and navigate and not hurt anybody and go across the way. Wasn't that far. We're talking across the street pretty much. Get the pizzas and get my butt back home. Have my family, have my friends. Diane can just get here when she feels like she's okay to get here. Well, I picked up the pizzas. It was not the best decision to make for anybody to make. And basically, I picked up the pizzas and came back up to go across to my house. And in Spring Valley Lake, during the Halloween, it's 8 o'clock cutoff because there's so much vandalism and too much crowding that goes on. They've started for the last few years now, they have cop cars lined up on the parkway. And that's to keep anything from bad happening because it gets so crazy down there. And at 8 o'clock, they turn on their spotlights and their speakers and they start telling people, go ahead and clear out. And they make sure everybody's cleared out by 8. And then at 8, everybody comes up here. So we're usually here till 9 or 9:30 handing out candy. Well, I swerved a little bit. I was this close to home and I got pulled over. And I begged them, can you please just let me call my sister or somebody to come get the pizzas, to come take my car and drive it across the street? Nope. Nope, they're going to impound your car. So that was my first DUI. And I was crying. My sister got here. She was scared to death. Diane's not here. I'm not here. I didn't lock the front door. I closed the garage, but I didn't lock the front door. I went out the front door and I was just going to run across, get the pizzas and come back. We're talking maybe a 10, 15, less than a 15-minute process. Sister gets here. She's like, this is not like Karen. Where's Diane? What's going on? I don't have my phone yet, back from the police, so I can't call anybody. I never have had a run-in with the law. I am never doing things against the rules. I don't drink and drive. And here I am, handcuffed in front of a cop car and crying and getting drove to the police department. So I get there and they tell me, here's your phone if you want to call somebody. So I called my sister. I did not call Diane. And so apparently then Diane called my sister because she finally wound up here. Or I think my sister called her and said, you know, this is what's going on, Diane, and I don't know where you're at, but, you know, you need to get home. So my sister wound up handing out the candy till Diane got here, told Diane what was going on. And I was embarrassed. I was thoroughly embarrassed. And with what comes with that, my sister did come and pick me up. And she said that Diane was very worried about me, etc. Da 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 da. So I did get dropped back off here at home. And Diane said, you're in no shape to talk about this. Just go get washed up. If you need a shower, get in bed. We'll talk about this tomorrow. So at that point, my partner was a little more open. She was very mad at me. She told me if it ever happened again, she would leave me. And I don't know what to tell you, Jim, but that happened. And I had to do the DOI classes. I had to pay the $2,500 fine. I had to do the community service. I had to get an SR22. I had the real bad realization that my car insurance was going to be something almost like you need a second job to pay. I had no clue it was going to go up that much, because some people would tell me, oh, it doesn't go up that much. And other people were like, oh no, it's going to go up a lot, you know? So I don't know what the difference is, but the difference there is probably the difference with me being in those DUI classes that I had to go to. And the stories were all over where the cop allowed the person to leave their car parked there and call a family member to come get it, you know, or a cop said, park your car. And, you know, they said, I'm right there, I'm close to home. They allowed them to park their car and the cop drove them home and gave them more or less a ticket versus getting hauled all the way down to the police department.
Yeah.
So the stories are all over with that, but that's fine. All I can control and do and handle and be accountable for is what I went through and what I need to do and what I have to do. So it was expensive getting the car out of impound. I didn't hit anybody. I just kept telling myself I'm thankful. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't damage any property. And I'm going to get through this. And the classes were 3 months. The insurance stayed 3 years at a high level. And
Let me ask
then,
you a question. While all this is going on, were you still drinking?
yes,
Okay.
because it became a habit. And I'm going to tell you, in the DUI classes, my instructor at one point, and it sticks here now, because you think, you know what, I don't got to give up drinking completely. I can handle a little bit,
Yep. That's what I
right?
thought. I thought the same thing.
My instructor at the time, 10 years ago, Jim, said, he took a poll around the class. He said, raise your hand if this was a hard enough lesson and you're never going to drink again, ever, nothing, ever. Well, there was a couple of people that raised their hand. So then he said, so I take it, raise your hand, the rest of you, if you think you're going to be okay to keep drinking. I raised my hand and I was being honest. And he looked at us and he said, for you, those of you that raised your hand that you will continue to drink and think you can make it and do okay, I'm going to see you back here. And I wished with everything in me, I listened to that, but I didn't. And so things got better for a little while with my relationship and not getting fall down drunk and not drinking and driving. Okay.
Do you find that you were drinking less when things were going all right in your life?
Of course.
So then when the stress happened, that's when you started drinking more.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So started drinking more due to stress and things not going the way that I wanted my relationship to be going. And like I said, I wished I would have just stopped back then. There's a lot of ifs, what ifs, and hypotheticals. We don't know, but I think that it might have been a lot better if I would have stopped drinking back then. And I probably wouldn't be where I'm at and about to tell you where I'm at today, 10 years later, almost to the day. Literally, September, I started drinking, quite a bit more. And got my partner retired, not this September, but last September. And it seemed to be a little bit better because she's non-stress and I'm like, we're going to make it. She's happier. It was just that stressful job. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
going to be better. It's going to be better. So, here I am with a DUI and a partner that complains about my drinking, yet she still drinks on occasion. And then I'm getting text messages, which I have saved, that, oh, look, I tried this new lemon drop martini recipe. So I got a beautiful dinner made, Karen, and I got us each two of these made in mason jars, this recipe that she had. They were pretty strong. So one day it was like not okay for Karen to drink. It was not okay for drunk Karen, but then it was.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that was helpful, but I am an adult. Like I'm not blaming my drinking or my DUIs on this person. Or at one point I was like, I'm going to give it up, Diane. It's not worth it. It's not worth the arguments with you after the fact that I've drank too much. So I put a calendar thing, printout of the month. And I said, I'm going to do 30 days. And if I can do 30 days, I'm going to do more. So I put the calendar thing on my mirror in the bathroom. I'm marking off the days. I come back to a little, I'm proud of you from her, feeling pretty good about myself. And then she calls and she says, hey, I'm on my way home. I know I'm a little late. We had this call, blah, blah, blah. Really rough, bad day. I'm going to stop and get me a big girl drink. And I know you've been doing really good too, Karen, and I'm proud of you. But if you'd like me to get you something, I will. You don't ask an addict that. You
No.
don't, you don't, you don't, you don't make two strong apple martinis for somebody who has now developed two isn't enough, one isn't enough. And that's where I got. And I think it's even worse for me because I am thin and I do eat lean. And so there's not a lot of whatever to metabolize it quick enough or whatever. And I do feel the effects, obviously, and show them a little bit more than somebody else would. So, it was very emotional for me. It was like, drinking's bad. You need to fix this. Do you want me to bring you something home? So, you know, it just never got better.
And that's confusing. That's like a confusing message being conveyed.
Yes, yes, it is. So,
So do you think that made it helped you as far as when the drinking got worse? Do you think that was part of it? Was the fact that you were just getting these confusing or conflicting messages?
yes, that it was okay to do that, but not this. It was okay to accept me now, but not over here, and put me down and say mean things over and hurtful things over here. It's just very, very confusing. So, January um, was our 27 years. This past July was 28 years.
Oh,
20
congratulations.
was 28 years. Um, didn't make it though, because January, she gave me a card for New Year's that said, I hope this year brings some healing of other little things that we've been through in the past, and this is gonna be a great year for us. Another card, and this is somebody who never gives cards, never gives gifts, never remembers the anniversary, even though I went in their phone and put 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, and the week of anniversary reminders in her iPhone. Um, Someone who I get excited and buy something little. It was never anything extravagant or big. We don't buy each other like, $1,000 tennis bracelets or anything stupid. Little and mindful, thoughtful things. And I would be excited about Valentine's Day. And I'm a planner, I'm a prepper, so I've always planned ahead and had that gift ready. I don't forget about it or run out at the last minute and just grab anything. It's meaningful what I get. And I don't give to just receive. So it was always exciting for me to get a little something special, or I'd see something and go, oh my gosh, and get something little, get up in the middle of the night and remember to set it out on the counter so that when she came out and got her coffee, her little Valentine's present was there. And every year it's like, oh, really, I forgot again? Damn it. And it's like, no, every store you've been in for the last 3 months has had Valentine's stuff at the front. Every commercial on TV has been about Valentine's Day. It's just an excuse. That's how I feel. So this last Valentine's Day this year, retired partner, um, again said that they had a couple drinks made and this beautiful dinner, and I was like, oh wow. And I get home to a card that said, my gift to you this year, Karen, is a beautiful evening and a promise to never give up on us. We've come way too far. um, got out on the patio. She had rearranged it so that the couch was kind of, it's a patio set, was sitting so they could see the wall on the TV on the wall instead of the two chairs with the ottomans, so we could sit together, and move the chairs over here. She moved the fireplace over a little bit because she knows I get cold easy. And she even had it on pause and picked out a romantic comedy on Amazon to watch. So me, I'm like, oh my God, is this really happening? We're going to make it. Life is going to be good. And so that was good. That was that. So February was good. And then in March, she gave me another little card that said, basically the same, you're my soulmate. I can't imagine my life without you, la di da. And then in April, we had an argument, and I can't even tell you exactly what started it, but it was something she said, and I said something back, and she slammed her hand down on the counter and she goes, "That's it. I'm sick of it. You take everything personal. Everything's a personal attack on you." And I'm like, and she goes, "I'm just going to go stay with Sue for a few days." And that's her twin sister. Now, me personally, it's my own belief that if she was still working, she didn't have the option working to just go stay with her sister that lived out of town. She had to stay here and get up and go to work in the morning. And sometimes that meant, in 20, 30-year marriages, we've all probably slept on the couch a couple times that we're mad. It happens, but you're there in the moment and you eventually work things through. But this time she got to go and do whatever and didn't have to worry about a job. So she left, and it was on day 3. And I'd been crying the last few days at work and just feeling this heavy feeling of I'm not going to get to retire and enjoy my person with everything that I've worked for, Jim. I made a 20-year plan where I stared at it at work as a spreadsheet, had a list of everything to pay off and when to pay it off by, a list that I kept in the drawer over here that we needed to do in this little home that we built 23 years ago to have things done, replace the water heater, things that need to be done before we're on a fixed income. Get a new tank, get a tankless water heater, a new garage door, new windows. All the window seals, they're dual pane, but they were little track home windows, and they were starting to fog up, from the weather. So I had a list this long of things that I checked off, did our taxes every year, made sure we got plenty of money back. I had planned everything, had so much going into savings, so much going into annuities, knew that our 20-year plan would pay for 75% of our medical, opened annuities that would pay the other 25%. So 100% for 10 years of our medical would be paid, take us way in over Medi-Cal or Medicare stage. Advanced directives, life insurance, $300,000 policies, young age, good health, long ago got those, knew that those were going to be based on that, and we could lock them in. I just tried to do everything smart and responsible because that's what I am. I'm smart, intelligent woman, and I'm responsible, and I'm disciplined, and I'm a control freak, and I'm going to do what's right. And that's how I've always lived my life. So what I'm about to tell you, you're going to be like me. I cried every day for the last 8 months going, how did I end up here? I still feel emotional, but I do feel better this week that I'm going to be okay on the other side, but it's not what I wanted or what I had planned for. So day 3, she's gone in April, and I'm crying at work, I'm crying at home, and I'm having this really heavy feeling that I'm not going to be able to retire and live a happy ending with my partner that I had planned. I'm not going to get the retirement that I planned and worked and scraped and scrimped for us. Okay. So I went drinking with some friends, and I drove. And I got pulled over. Again, I didn't hit anybody. I didn't damage anybody else's property. I didn't kill anybody. But I swerved and was being watched and got pulled over. And that was on April 21st of this year. And yes, I knew. And I thought I was going to throw up, and not from the drinking. That I had thought I could make it home. And I was pretty close to home again. I was right over here on Yucca Loma. Yucca wraps into Ridgecrest, and boom, I'm home. So I was that close to home, and I got pulled over again, 10 years apart. And I knew that this was going to cost me. It was going to cost me financially more because it's the second one. And up until that point, I hadn't drank and drove. And I still to this day, Jim, sit and think, what was going through my head? Why wasn't I just at home drinking if that was going to be the case? And so that night, yep, Diane did tell me, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm done. And she said, but we're going tomorrow and we're separating the bank account and I am not paying for your mistakes again. Period. Not doing it. You're on your own. And so by the time, and I went to work that day. And I went to work that day because that next day, the next day I went to work. My car did get towed, so I called a friend for a ride from work. And it's weird because when she was in the car with me and picked me up, because I did have her pick me up from the police department, not my sister this time. It is what it was. She was either going to come and get me or not, and I knew that it was going to pretty much ruin my life. I had let alcohol ruin my life, basically. And so I went to work, and that was tough. And I had to take care of all my stuff with the car being impounded and paying that, meeting her at the bank to separate the accounts, meeting her here on a lunch break to separate the cell phone bills. And it was like she was mad. She was like one thing after another I had to take care of. And she went from her sister's house to renting her friend's granny house. And I prayed that there would be a way to reconcile. And it's weird how time passes, and it passes quick. And I realized it's 8 months now. And I realized at the 6-month point, it was like, oh my God, she has been gone a half a year. I haven't drank since then. It doesn't have a place in my life. It would only be detrimental to my health and my ability to get through and navigate what I needed to navigate through even these last 8 months, because it goes right to the DMV. You got to get an attorney. It's $2,500 to retain an attorney. They do your DUI hearing for you. I knew all the stuff because of before, just that it might be a little tougher on me because of the other one. Now I know usually at 10 years, they don't count it as two. They count it as a new one, but mine was a week off. So I'm not sure exactly how much more I'm going to have to deal with financially or otherwise. But it was a lot. So it was DUI April 21st. Nothing for my birthday, May 9th. Not being able to celebrate, her family's been my family, for almost 30 years. She told me it would be probably better if I didn't come to the two nieces on her side, baby showers. That was hurtful. So I could think of all these losses, right? I can check them off. And nothing, and all the gifts that I had bought to celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary on July 21st. So I didn't get any of that. And I was alone. I have my sister, but that's it. And I don't talk to her every day and things like that. So it's like I didn't have any support system. I've been with the same person for 28 years. And I'll tell you, Jim, waking up to the quiet house and silence and no one to come home and tell how your day was deafening. And it was almost paralyzing for me. I was supposed to retire July 15th. They asked me to stay longer to September, and I think God or the higher power has a plan for all of us in whatever lessons we're supposed to be learning. I hope I figure out what that was for this. But I know somebody was looking out for me, that I didn't hurt anybody, I didn't kill anybody, as stupid as a mistake as it was, and that I was asked to work longer than I needed to be, or intended, because I don't think I would have survived. And I'm not one to I think suicide is selfish. I can't imagine. I'm not judgmental to be able to imagine being in that dark of a place, but I do think it's a very selfish act that you leave everybody else dealing with, and I would not do that. But there's those days, we've all had those dark days, I'm sure, through our drinking, and especially if you've had loss because of it, and having your whole world just crumble, and then having to deal with a loss of a spouse, getting a divorce, splitting all the accounts. She wanted us off of each other's cars, split our car insurance, and all these hoops that I had to jump through, and no time to even just have a good cry and go, wow, this is it. So I just immediately, jumped into action mode, damage control. Did the best that I could for her. Got things done in a timely manner. Had my paperwork that came in the mail that said I could drive up until a certain date, and then, depending on the hearing and their outcome, everything just kind of kept getting pushed along, but in my favor, if you will, even though I did this bad thing. And I felt very blessed for that. I was very worried about not being able to drive to work and having to find a ride every day, and living through the embarrassment of people going, where's your car? Why aren't you driving? So I got to drive right up to past my retirement. So I still could drive. I was waiting for the DMV hearing. I get the letter that says starting this particular date. No, I retired September 23rd, and DMV letter said I could drive up until November 17th, because I kept waiting for the hearing results, because that took a while, but apparently they're all backed up. I could drive till the 17th, and then my license would be taken away from me and suspended till the following November 17th. I'm down to a one income. We were going to be very comfortable with two incomes and all of our medical paid. I had refinanced the house and a small balance on it prior to that, spike in everything weird, and 3% interest rate, and a small payment that even I can afford on my own, which is cheaper than anything you could rent out there right now. So I feel blessed for that. I have a roof over my head. She has a roof over her head. At first it was, I'm going to take you for everything you got. I'm going to put the house up for sale. And I had a DUI, a divorce, retirement, cutting income, not being able to drive, and all these things thrown at me. And at any given point, I could have just sat down and had some more to drink and just boohoo about it and not feel it. Or I could pull myself together and start making things right one at a time, the best that I could. And that's what I did. And so immediately when I got my letter that said, you can drive till the 17th, Miss Kelly, but we've decided to take your driver's license away for a whole year. I immediately got on the phone with my attorney. They told me to call the mandatory actions unit with the DMV and ask how I would go about getting a restricted license. So I did that, called them. They said, hang on, let's see if you're eligible. I thought, oh God, you know, they're going to tell me this is your second DUI. You're toast, lady. As a matter of fact, we're going to take it away for 2 years, and there's no option, and which they could have done. He came back to the phone. He said, you are eligible, and you need to have enrolled for your 3 month of DUI classes, which when you do that, it goes straight over to the DMV. I don't have to do anything. You have to have an SR-22 on file. I remember that from last time too. So I called the same company. And that went straight over to the DMV. And then you have to have a breathalyzer installed in your car. And I said, okay. And I know I've heard horror stories about those, that they tear up the inside of your vehicle to install it. And that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and that the person has to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 to have it installed.
Yep,
And all of that,
I had one.
okay. Well, things have changed. How long ago did you have yours installed?
Um, Geez, I'm trying to think. Maybe 4 years ago.
Okay, so they've changed a little bit. They've changed a lot actually. And this is where I go, Jim, that inside I am a good person. And I believe in karma, and I believe in not judging people and helping people and all of these things. I don't know how I wound up so blessed to have the resources that I did and the money that I did to get me through this, but I did. And it's all just these little miracles. And so the SR-22, I paid for the whole year. I've had it for 3, so I paid it for the whole year. The DUI classes, they were not this expensive 10 years ago. It is $1,000 for 3 months. $1,000. The breathalyzer became an issue. It's like, I got to get this installed. I'm not going to be able to drive in a few days. Blah, blah. So everywhere I went, nope, Miss Kelly, your car is not on our list. I have an expensive Volvo, and it's just, there's no schematic. Your car isn't on the list. I'm thinking, oh my God. Now, bear in mind, I had paid off every single bill. We have no credit card, no installment loans, windows, garage door, new microwave and refrigerator, everything paid off. All we had was our house payment and utilities. So the car's paid off. So I thought, oh my God, I'm probably going to have to go trade my car in, which I love, for another kind of car that can get this thing installed, because I can't not drive for a year, Jim. I've got to work. I'm down to a one income, fixed income, and am pulling some money from my annuities, which I can do to supplement, but I don't want to continue to do that. I want to stop that at some point, get a job, even part-time, and let my annuities continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell you, I was in tears, and I was so frustrated going to all these places saying, oh yeah, we can install it, no problem. And you get there, and the one place, the guy, I go in and the lady says, do you have your key? And I go, my car doesn't take a key. And she looks at her screen, she goes, oh, it says here on the screen that your car does take a key. I go, no, I have a fob. And she goes, oh, okay. is it push button? And I go, no, it has this little crystal thing. You have to turn one way to start and one to stop. She goes, oh, let me go talk to my installer because I'm not sure about that. So she leaves the building and she goes, talks to him. He comes back, he says, let me check you inside of your car. So go out to my car, look at it. It's like the third person that's told me no. So he goes in and I go, okay, I'll just sit here in my car and wait. So it was really, really cold. So, and it was cold in their little building too. So I just sat in my car with the heater on. He comes out and he says, not going to be able to do it today. And he's got paperwork about that thick. And he said, I called and got the instructions from the company to install this, but I got to give myself a minute for this. And I thought, I just wasn't feeling comfortable. 3 places I was like, oh my God, I don't want my car jacked up. You know, I don't want my warranty voided. Or if they cut the wrong thing, it voids my warranty. And I negotiated a 10-year warranty in 2018 when I bought it. So finally, I got a phone call while I'm in the car. And I'm telling you, it's all these little weird things that happen. From there's different, obviously, you know, there's different makers of these breathalyzers. There's
Yeah.
Intoxilock, there's Lifesaver, there's whatever, right? There's all these companies. And the gal from Lifesaver called me and she said, Karen, I am so angry that you've had to go through this and upset, and that you've had to go to 3 of our installers just to be told that you can't have it installed in your car. She says, I'm going to send you to my guy who does all of our high-end cars, all of my Teslas, you know, all the electric cars, all of the BMWs and Mercedes. And I said, okay, all right. So she gives me his number. So I call him and he tells me, he goes, as soon as I got done talking to her, I looked up your vehicle. I see no problem in being able to do this. And I said, okay, can you do it today? And he said, yeah, but you're going to have to drive down to Fontana to my shop. And I said, I'm there. So he gives me the address. I drive down there. You know how traffic can be on the freeway. It can be, you know, a 40-minute drive could turn into 3 hours. I made it there with no traffic. It was clear sailing. I was careful to drive safe because I don't have any infractions on my driver's license other
So were you
than
able to get it done?
I was able to get it done.
Okay.
While I was down there, I was almost not able to get it done. He took my car around back, and I called the girl at the Lifesaver company, and I forget what my question was. And she goes, let me put you on a hold a minute. And she comes back and she goes, I have you in my system as not eligible to have this installed, Miss Kelly. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I'm texting him that took my car around the back. And I'm like, hold on, hold on. The company's saying that I'm not eligible. And I said, there's no way. And so I finally, done arguing with her, can I please speak to a supervisor? And so she gets me a supervisor and she says, that's what we have in the system. It says not eligible. That's the last comment. So now I said, fine. I'm back on the phone with the mandatory action unit, Jim, and I am call 420. Okay. So he comes back, the gentleman, the installer comes back around. I tell him where I'm at. And he's like, you're eligible, you're fine. He says, me as an installer, I have to pull the stuff from the DMV and it's both there, Karen. And I said, okay, well, I'm down to caller number 4. Just give me a minute. And he goes, all right. And so mandatory actions unit lady was very nice to me. She goes, Miss Kelly, you are fine. Yes, on the 21st, when they called to get verification that you had your stuff eligible, your DUI class had not hit the system on our end yet. You're good. You're good to go.
That's good.
So my point is I text him. He comes back around. And I am eligible. We're good to go. He goes, okay, great. You're installed. It's all working. You're ready to go. I'm like,
So
okay.
did this lead into your recovery? Let's start talking recovery. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left, and I want to know
Okay.
at what point did you decide that you needed to get better, and what did you do to get better?
I had to lose everything just about. I almost was going to lose my house, um, and lose everything that I had worked for. I thought I was going to have to trade my car in and get a different car and lose my car that I'd worked really, really hard for. I thought I was going to have to still work and not have a car to get to work, but that was extended. It was all these losses that I figured, and 100% of it was my family said if I ever did it again after this time, they said, Karen, we're not going to have contact with you. This is it. Once was a mistake. This is a lot to take. And so losing the respect of my family, losing the respect of others, and losing my 28-year marriage was the clincher. And that there was no reconciling that. And so I just realized alcohol does not have a place in my life. I don't want to ever be in this position again, Jim. And there's only one way for me not to guarantee that I'm not going to be in this position again. And to guarantee that the third time I'm not going to kill somebody, or I am, or make that bad decision again. I knew I needed to get help. So I immediately went into counseling through my medical, immediately. Just counseling, and an addiction counselor, because one's going to help me in one area where the other one isn't. This one's going to be a little more specialized over here. Because my drinking at that point had become an addiction. I didn't know how to function without it. And it's not every day. And I learned that drinking every day is one thing, but you can still be an alcoholic and not drink every day. I don't wake up in the morning shaking because I have to get, some alcohol, or I have to have a couple shots of something. And I could not drink for weeks. But when I did drink, one wasn't enough, and I was becoming accustomed to that numb feeling and that almost blackout feeling, and that's binge drinking. And it's very hard. I started doing some other courses on alcohol and what it does to your body and your mind, and all those things. And so that was my part of my recovery, because I had some dark days. I've cried almost every day in a house alone, retired. My retirement plan shot to hell, going to Hawaii, going on some train rides and traveling to different places that we had on our bucket list is gone. I am going to have to work, even though I'm retired, because now it's just me. And I just knew that if I didn't stop drinking, it was either going to kill me or it's going to kill somebody else, or it was going to take more out of my life than I've already lost. So regular counseling, addiction counselor, online and in-person DUI, AA meetings. There's a website and they tell you where the different meetings are and at what times, and there's some online ones. And your website, your Facebook page. I'm on 3 different Facebook pages for support.
Right.
And 2 close friends. Like I said, I'm not a believer in suicide being there were days I didn't want to be here, going through all of this alone and knowing that how much I've lost. So I had a couple friends call me every day just to make sure I was okay. And that was scary to have to ask for that. And so I just want to get through this, pay my dues, get healthy, and and not only healthy physically but healthy mentally, because alcohol does do a lot to your brain, and it takes like 3 weeks of not drinking when you've been heavy drinking, and it doesn't matter if it's every day. I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. I go to work every day. I'm getting promotions and I'm getting accolades at work, and there isn't anything I can't do at work. I have a productive life. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink every day. I don't have to have it or I'm going to get all like, wigged out. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an addictive personality. Yeah, I am. And I have to fix that. And I just want to get to a healthier place so that whatever time I have left in my life can be positive and productive. And honest to God, with alcohol, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be that, and I know that. We talk about time and how fast time goes. I'm almost 60, and I envision, for the most part, my thoughts in my mind. My parents both lived to their 80s, and in relatively good health, you can live to your 80s. That's what we do nowadays. Sometimes even a little longer, but I'm gauging the 80s. So I'm gauging 20 years left of good health and life.
Still a long time to have left.
Hypothetically, I've got more years behind me, Jim, than I have in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have pretty much effed up quite a few of them behind me, with alcohol. Still, living a fairly good life and a good job, but it did really, really change the course of my future. And I hurt people that I didn't want to hurt. When you got to get a text message or an email from the person that you love dearly saying, and I get it, she left. I went through this stage where I felt like I was abandoned. They just walked out on me. They didn't even care that I was okay. They didn't even say, Karen, let's get you into some rehab. Let's get this fixed. You can't keep doing this. Even if we had to split the bank accounts and me take on the responsibility myself, I was angry that that person didn't stay with me. So I have to get over that too. But I just know that it's taken a lot from me, but this next 20 years that I might have left on earth, I want to make them the best that I can. And there's not really room for alcohol in that life, because I know that I would go right back to that habit. One's not enough. And I don't see where you fix that as a person, where you can, okay, I'm not going to drink for 30 days and then I'm only going to have one beer at a time. It's just going to elevate itself back, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
So there's no answer for me but to not drink and to stay in the moment. And it's been hard. I'm not going to lie to you. We have plenty of people on your Facebook page sometimes where they're saying, somebody talk to me. I'm having a bad day, and I'm been sober for this long, and I don't want to make that mistake. And we have other people that are, I hate myself, I drank yesterday, or people that are on there that are saying, how can I make more than 3 days? I can only make 3 days. It's hard.
Yeah, I'm on the post. It's you see a lot of people looking for help. There's a lot of us out there that they use on a lot of people use online for their support system. They use it as a big portion of their support system.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I'm using it for my support system and for my education
Yeah.
because we can all sit and cry our woes and how we got here, but there's so much more into it. What it does to your other people in your life and your body, and great. My liver enzymes are perfect, but what it does to your heart, and it ages your heart. Sometimes that's not reversible. The gray matter and what it does to your brain, if you catch it in time, is reversible and gives you early onset of dementia and all those things that none of us really want. So it's an overall education. But going back to getting an email from the person that you loved and that trusted you for 28 years to say, Karen, I'm laying awake at night and I feel like I'm going to throw up and cry at the same time because you're in our house and you're with our dogs. We have two little dogs. We've had them the whole time, 13 and 12. Little rescues that were dumped in a box to die that were both very close to our dogs, or like our kids. And I would miss them dearly if I didn't get to see them every day. And now my partner is living somewhere else because she feels that she needs to, and she has a lot of anger and hate towards me, which I have to live with. And she says, and you get to be in our house and you get to have our dogs every day. And I'm living in a stranger's granny house and you're the one that made the mistake. And that's hard. That's hard. And if I kept drinking, I would never gain that person's respect again, or my family's, or my family's. And I've offered, do you want to come and do the house? And I will go find a place. And they said no. Too many memories, and that's their choice and their decision. So right now I am in recovery 100%. And I check in on your Facebook page and a couple others. um, I have my online meetings, I have my in-person meetings, I have my DUI classes, and I have a spiritual group that I joined, one of the first ones, and they're once a month on Mondays, once a month. And the first one that I went to was overcoming struggles in life and obstacles. Okay, so I got a lot out of that speaker. And the next one was on loss and grief, and that's not necessarily just death. So I went because losing my partner of 28 years, I think, is worse than a death because they're still there. There's no closure. And it's a constant reminder that I hurt them. We still have stuff to get through together, that I have to see them. And they did come and see the dogs yesterday. And I told her, anytime you want to come and see the dogs, even if I'm not home, it's up to you. I'm trying to do what I can do. But I think that's what hurts the worst, is that I lost my 28-year marriage. And all I had to do was stop drinking and learn to handle things that affected me another way. That's all I had to do. And right now, I probably could have been in Hawaii on my first trip with my person of 28 years. And instead, I'm in recovery.
Well, at least you're in recovery right now and you're not still drinking, because that would be the part that wouldn't make sense. So at least you're doing what you can to have, it's going to be a new chapter in your life.
But also, I joined because I'm having a hard time being alone. And living with my guilt when I'm alone, it
Oh
does
yes,
this, all
it's
right?
it's good to keep
When you're
busy
not,
and keep social.
yeah, when you're not busy. And, I have a gorgeous guitar room, and I'm ashamed to say that I hadn't even been in there to sit and play in 8 months, and that's not like me. I'm every day. And if I took you in there and showed you, you'd be like, what are you doing out here?
Mm.
But I wasn't finding any joy in life at first when all this happened. Nothing made me happy. It was dark, and I was just stepping through. It was like I was just going through the motions, Jim, every day. And so, with recovery and with forcing myself to get out there in these groups, um, you know, um, the next one's going to be in January, and it's going to be on anxiety. So I'll continue to go to those. So I'm searching out things that I can be a part of in a group that, you know, fills my soul with something other than bad thoughts, because that's when I'm going to start reaching for that bottle to check out. And so I'm trying my hardest to stay in, better places, mindfully. And one of them is a bunco group that I joined, and just so I could be out with people. It's close to home, but there's some ladies there that, Jim, they order several drinks and they get a little sloppy, but it's an eye opener and it's a reminder for me. So, at first it was hard. Everybody, not everybody, but the majority of them are having drinks, right? Because it's at
Yeah.
a bar and grill over here. They rent the back room for bunco that we go to once a month. So at first it's hard because you're like, you feel like you're missing out on some of the fun. This isn't that fun. I'm not drinking and having fun with these people. To, fast forward 8 months later, it doesn't feel weird to go down there and see them drink and me get a Diet Coke or even just some ice water and just play the game and be in the moment. Thanksgiving, talking to my sister, it's the first family holiday in a very long time, because I would drink a lot at family holidays and the family didn't like it. I, in developing this and over the years, because even my sister said, Karen, you weren't like this when you were younger. And I go, I know I wasn't. Mom and dad weren't alcoholics. We never had alcohol in the house. So I can't blame it on that either. And as a young adult, it was get to work, do your job, be proud, come home, exercise, take my dogs for a walk. And alcohol wasn't one of those things that, there's a lot of people out there, and I have friends that are that way. I have a friend, she says, I come home at night. First thing I do before I change, I pour myself a glass of wine. Then I go get another glass while I'm cooking dinner, a glass with dinner, and then a glass after dinner. And that's every night. And I've never been one of those people.
So
So,
what are you doing nowadays to keep sober?
um, well, like I said, meditation,
Okay.
journaling, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. I know one of the gals talked about that last night on our group session
Yeah.
that she was doing. Yes, journaling. Um, always what my thoughts are for the day, what my feelings were for the day, whether they were, hurt, dark, or good. Still be real, because I'm going to go back and look through those, and then a minimum of 10 things for that day that I was grateful or blessed for, because I can always find a lot that I've lost or that's bad or that doesn't feel good right now. So journaling, meditation. I have an app on my phone that I listen to before bed, and it's self-hypnosis, and it's talking about how, you're relinquishing all the control that alcohol had on you. You don't want alcohol in your life anymore, and it's a self-hypnosis that I go to sleep listening to. So that, I was completely out of my norm. I'm in bed at 8, up at 4, out the door jogging at 4:30. I was getting pretty dark places, Jim. I was sleeping till, I'm retired now, so I was I don't want to get up. I slept till 9. The one day that was the worst was 11, just laying there in bed, just either crying or feeling sorry for myself. I've went through pretty much all the waves that you go through, you
Yeah,
know.
sounds
And
like it.
so right now I am doing my classes and uh, my Facebook pages, my meditation, um, getting back in there, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour a day playing my guitar, getting out doing my exercising every day, and just making sure that I'm doing my routine and that I stay in a better place.
I think that's also good advice for people, to kind of keep busy, first of all, and also to do things that are productive. But I think that's pretty good place to wrap it up. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add in?
No, just to tell people to be strong. It's not easy. It's not it's not for sissies. That's for sure. Just stay strong, believe in yourself, and know that it's not a joke. It will get better. It will get better. But it's kind of like one of those things where God only helps them who helps themselves. And I think somebody said that last night or in one of my other groups. And, I totally wholeheartedly agree. So, just keep believing in yourself and helping yourself through this, regardless of whether you think you can do it or you can't. You can. You can. Keep telling yourself that until you believe it.
Absolutely. No, I completely feel you on that. That was something that I did when I first got out of rehab. Was I told myself, "You can do this. You can do this. You can do this." Matter of fact, on the bracelets we give away, it says, "You can do this," and then the other side says, "Addicts Anonymous." But yeah, I believe in that. But I
Absolutely.
appreciate you coming on the podcast and doing it today. How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel blessed, and I feel grateful that you reached out. And I feel even more grateful that I felt compelled to tell my story to help somebody else, maybe, um, and that I had enough courage to do it and not be ashamed.
That's great. Yes, that's really great. And I really, once again, want to say thank you for doing it.
You got it. I
So, do,
appreciate it.
yeah. So, do me a favor, sit tight for a moment. And for everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also, subscribe to see when we upload new videos. You can check us out on all social media. We're on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, you name it, we're on it. Also, check out our website. It's www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you'll find plenty of free literature and resources. So that's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time.